Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, and it is time for a preview of the 2023 Miami Open final. Daniil Medvedev versus Jannik Sinner. Excited for this one. Second time we have seen it in the last 2 months. There's kind of been a big three in the absence of Novak Djokovic in February and March between Alcaraz, Sinner, and Medvedev. They've been the three best players on tour in the last 2 months. No doubt about it. And it's going to be great to see Sinner and Medvedev go at it again. Hopefully, you guys get to see this video before the final. I know it's a late upload. Apologies for that. But I had some thoughts, and I did want to get them out, even if it is late. Let's start with Medvedev having a 5-0 head-to-head against Sinner in their careers. Very clear. Bad matchup for Sinner, good matchup for Medvedev. Let's get into why. And then we'll talk about the Rotterdam match. We'll talk about what Sinner needs to change. I think this is pretty simple with why Medvedev hasn't been bothered by Sinner. And it's that Sinner's pace, which I talked about as being a great asset in the Alcaraz head-to-head. It's not a great asset in the Medvedev head-to-head. And I've had the same conversation over and over again when it comes to Medvedev versus Rublev, when it comes to Medvedev versus Fritz. Players who try to use their baseline power as their main asset don't normally do very well against Daniil Medvedev because Medvedev is a fantastic pace absorber. When it comes to, let's compare it to Alcaraz again, Medvedev versus Alcaraz. Alcaraz is a fantastic pace generator. Medvedev is a fantastic pace absorber. And what Sinner does, what Sinner did to Alcaraz was take tons of time away, hit great depth, hit great power through the middle of the court a lot of the time at the Alcaraz forehand. And that pace was an asset for Sinner, where he rushed Alcaraz. He didn't let Carlitos do what he wants to do. And, he drew some errors and was able to kind of play tennis on the front foot. But against Medvedev, just doesn't work as well, plain and simple. So, in Rotterdam, Jannik made a couple of mistakes that I think he can do better. All right. And one of them is allowing Medvedev to hit too many backhands. Sinner was taking his backhand cross court a little bit over 70% of the time against Medvedev in Rotterdam. And it seemed like they were playing loads of backhand to backhand rallies. And then when I looked at the analytics after the match, sure enough, Medvedev was hitting 2 backhands for every 1 forehand. He hit way more backhands than he did forehands. And Sinner was the same way. But to me, that is advantage Medvedev. And it's not because Sinner is completely outmatched when it comes to the backhand and backhand battle against Medvedev. I don't think it's too big a mismatch, to be honest, although I do think Medvedev has the advantage. Medvedev is more consistent, and we saw that in Rotterdam. Backhand to backhand, first to miss, usually going to be Sinner. And when Jannik isn't going down the line and he's just going cross, the rally is just staying neutral. Neutral, 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 neutral. Nobody can make any progress. Well, why can't Jannik make any progress? Because Medvedev's backhand almost never drops short and almost never misses, and it stays really low. It's very unattackable. Now, is it a brutally overwhelming offensive weapon? No. But if you are looking for a ball to attack, you probably shouldn't go to Medvedev's backhand. You should go to his forehand. His forehand has more topspin. It's a little bit faster on average, but if you are able to rush it or if you're able to hit high quality to Medvedev's forehand, it's not quite as good absorbing pace as the backhand. It's still good, but not quite as good. But more importantly, it doesn't stay as low. It drops short more often. And as a result, you actually can get something to attack when you go to Medvedev's forehand. Sinner needs to hit his backhand down the line way more than he did in Rotterdam. I think that's an adjustment he needs to make. The second thing he needs to do is he needs to come forward at finish at net. And I think he did that well in the first set when they played in Rotterdam. And then he got away from it in the second and the third set. Maybe Medvedev had something to do with that, keeping the ball deeper in the court. serving better, returning better. Maybe those things came into play. Sure, but Sinner can't let that happen. He needs to get forward because of what I talked about with Medvedev being such a good pace absorber, not being bothered by pace. And by the way, part of this is his court position. The way he deflects pace is not only with his technique and the way he's very good. He's naturally gifted at redirecting pace, but it's also with his court positioning, and he's going to drop back and buy himself time. And what does pace do? Pace steals time. On the other side of the court, when you're delivering pace to the other side of the court, you're taking away your opponent's time. Medvedev gets that time back by moving back, right? So we've seen the way to counter that. You have to come forward when you want to finish the point. You can't finish from the baseline on a consistent basis. It's very, very difficult to do that. If anybody can do it, honestly, Sinner is up there for guys who could do it with the precision that he sometimes is able to tap into. The fact that he is so potent off of both wings. Look, he's in the top 1% of power on the ATP Tour. And this is a pretty quick court. So maybe he can finish from the back. But he's probably going to need to come forward and use his transition game. I have some concerns about that, to be completely honest. Against Alcaraz, I think Sinner's performance, I would give it an A. And there's one area that takes away my plus. And I think if he played better in this area, he would have won the first set. And he might have won the match in straights instead of 3. And that is a handful of points where he was sloppy on the approach shot, sloppy on the volley, or in one case that really stands out in my head because it was an important point, sloppy on an overhead. So finishing positions inside the court, approach shot, volley, overhead. Sinner is not as clinical as he possibly can be in those areas. And against Medvedev, he requires it. Daniil requires it. And that is why the players who have been able to beat Medvedev, Nadal, Djokovic, Tsitsipas, Kyrgios, Alcaraz, for the most part, these guys are great volleyers. Jannik needs to challenge himself here, I believe. All right. Next point is Sinner's return. This is an area where I think Jannik is going to have some success. Second serve return. Medvedev's second serve has looked a little bit vulnerable in this tournament. He's been above 5% double fault rate in his last 3 matches. His second serve win percentage against Christopher Eubanks was only 44%. Against Quentin Alice, it was only 50%. That's not so good either. Against Khachanov, it was 55%, which is all right. But I do think that Sinner has the opportunity to be really aggressive off of Medvedev's kick serve, which is not the heaviest kick serve. Just as big as Medvedev serves on the flat serve, that pace and heaviness does not translate to his kick serve. And Daniil has had some trouble with the sun. This is a 1 p.m. start. Look for Sinner to be very, very aggressive right away on his second serve return against Medvedev, especially when he's looking up into the sun. And what did I talk about with Medvedev's court position? How he is able to defend against pace by retreating. Well, you can't retreat after your serve. You have to be on the baseline. There's no choice. Unless Medvedev wants to hit second serves from 3 feet behind the baseline, then he's going to have to be on the baseline. Right? So that's a big opportunity for Sinner to attack Medvedev with his pace, with his power. Even, doesn't need to be all that precise, and could have success. Could have success because Medvedev is not in a position to defend after hitting a second serve. I think that's a big opportunity for Jannik. And boy, was he awesome against Alcaraz at hitting big second serve returns. I mean, deadly. That is an area where he gets his A+. He gets his 11 out of 10, maybe even better than a 10 out of 10. It was a huge reason why he won the match. I'd be a little concerned just watching Medvedev all tournament long and watching Sinner return all tournament long. Seems like Sinner should have a lot of success on second return. My next point I want to make is simply about Sinner's level. It's been higher than Medvedev's in general. It's been a little bit more impressive. It feels like Daniil hasn't been able to really get himself into the tournament until the Khachanov match, which in some ways I was expecting to be difficult because Khachanov is playing with a ton of consistency from the back of the court. He is very, very physical. He was able to hit some big serves in these quick Miami conditions during the daytime, and that does go 3 sets. But in general, he got the first round against Carballes Baena. That's a great draw. He got the walkover against Molchan. He got a no-rhythm match against Alice. He played Christopher Eubanks, who I'm very happy to see have so much success in the quarterfinals. Nonetheless, it's a qualifier rather who had never been in a Masters 1000 quarterfinal ever before. Medvedev was obviously the huge favorite in that match. So Daniil, his path has been a little bit soft. And for Sinner, he's absolutely crushed everyone in his path, and some of those head-to-heads have been more difficult. You have a Grigor Dimitrov, where you get a 6-3, 6-4. You get a Rublev, and you get a 6-2, 6-4, where he played absolutely lights out. Emil Rusevori, who is like Jannik Sinner, only worse, and Sinner beats him pretty badly every time. That's a 6-3, 6-1. That was a pretty soft draw. And then you have the Alcaraz win in the semifinal, where, yeah, it was late at night, but he got a day to recover from it. So overall, I see that as a huge positive and a big confidence-boosting match for Jannik Sinner. So the form suggests that he's playing a little bit better, and I think that in this case it does mean something. Now, the other, I guess, intangible factor that has nothing to do with their head-to-head, but rather just where each of them are positioned in their career, is that for Daniil Medvedev, this is just another Sunday. This is normal. He's been in every Masters 1000 on hard court final. He's been in major finals. He's been at year-end championship finals. This is normal. This is just another final. There is nothing abnormal about this match for Daniil Medvedev. Same can't be said about Sinner. This is the biggest match of his life, tied with when he made the Miami final a couple years ago. He played really badly in that match, by the way, but he's a lot older and a lot better now. Still, he has not been in a final this big in a long time. So could there be nerves? Maybe. If nerves are going to play a factor, we know who it's going to affect. Pretty much Sinner. It'd be really surprising if Medvedev suffers too much from any kind of pressure that he's feeling. Because again, he is used to this. This is new for Sinner, so that is an advantage for Medvedev. All right, time to make a pick. You've probably been listening to me trying to figure out where I'm leaning. And it's probably pretty tough to figure out. And it should be tough because I couldn't really figure it out. I really couldn't. I don't feel strongly about who's going to win this match. My head, most of the way I work things out tactically, are in favor of Medvedev. I feel like Sinner does need to leave his comfort zone to win this match, to play much more in the forecourt than I think he's used to. And to kind of overcome the fact that what Sinner does best, which is rush his opponents with his pace, is not going to affect Medvedev that much. So all of that intellectual stuff finds me wanting to favor Medvedev. And of course, it's played out in their head-to-head. What has me going the other way is this. I feel like this is a moment for Sinner, and I picked him to win Indian Wells because I felt like this was a moment for Sinner to break through and, have his breakthrough. And I feel already, slightly vindicated or slightly, I don't know, like I was on the right track because of what he's done here, making a semifinal and then a final at this Sunshine Double. Now, I picked Alcaraz to beat him somewhat because there was no way I could pick Sinner to beat Alcaraz 3 times in a row and get it wrong all 3 times. That was not going to happen. And I did feel like Alcaraz was playing at a level that was the best in the world. But now that Sinner's gotten through that, I think I want to just get behind him again, kind of blindly. Even if the math doesn't add up in my head, sometimes you got to kind of trust your gut. And I think Sinner might make the adjustments here, brutalize Medvedev's second serve, and make Medvedev hit way more forehands than he did in Rotterdam, and win his first big title. Just kind of feeling it. So I'll go Sinner in 3, even though most of the logic points to Medvedev. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.